Do you know my dad?
Alright, so I've had a bunch of people ask me for the spear build, so I figured I'd educate the youth today. Let's start off with the gear. For the artifacts, we're running featherweight chests, finisher, and Ankh. And because we're running a featherweight chest, that means we need to run 2 heavy pieces. So I prefer to run Frigid Dawn pieces if you can get them from the dungeon. I think they're the best. You need to pick 2 of those. It needs to be either helm, boots, or gloves. And the one that you don't make heavy needs to be light. Pants as well are light. Priority in terms of perks, you want to try to get elemental aversion on every single piece of gear other than featherweight. On featherweight, I would suggest you put a conditioning as the last mod. Fortifying perforate and enfeebling skewer are your priority weapon mods. Cyclone is another nice one if you're not playing with a healer, but I think if you're playing with a healer, then taking something that increases your effective HP is probably better. Prioritize shirking energy on your pants as well. It's incredibly OP. Armor's pretty simple though. Just elemental aversion, cap refreshing. We have 3 refreshings on our armor. The last one's going to come in on your earring. And other than that, it's just pretty standard. As far as gems go, 4 opals in the armor, 1 onyx, and +1 melee damage, rune glass on every single piece. For our spear, we go with frontline point. We put keenly jagged on it. The only variation of this that I would use other than this would be to switch vicious for rogue, but both are good. Rogue is higher potential damage, but you have to actually get behind your target. You know, vicious comes into play regardless of whether you're behind the target or not. They're both very good. I probably would prefer rogue, but this is much easier to get. The rogue spear, you basically have to Azoth induct if you want to get it. Last perk on finisher, you pretty much have 2 choices, maybe 3, but for me it's 2. I would either go keen speed, which I think is okay, but the better choice is probably plague crits, just so if you fletch through somebody, you can apply plague crits to them. Keen speed's alright, but the majority of time when you fletch through somebody and you proc keen speed, you'll switch to your spear and lose it anyways, so it's really not that impactful. There are situations where it comes into play though. As far as our jewelry goes, we run Ankh. You can drop this if you don't play with a healer very often, but you should be playing with a healer if you're playing this build. This is a build that's designed around team play. It's not a solo build, so Ankh's pretty OP here. Champion's Ring, throw thrust damage on it is very good ring for this build. The only improvement you want to make here is switching Invigorated Punishment for Mortal Empowerment. I have a Mortal Empowerment ring on my other character, but I just haven't got one on this guy yet. And then last piece of gear is going to be your earring. You want Refreshing and Nimble. And your last mod is kind of personal preference. You can go Refreshing Toast, you can go Healthy Toast, you can go Fortifying Toast with this, so this is a good option if you want to do that. All of them work, none of them are required. I prefer Healthy Toast most of the time. I think it's the best. You know, but that's something that's up to the player themselves. The gem in your spear is going to be an emerald with a case on it. The gem in your finisher is going to be an emerald with no case on it. You can put a case on it if you want to, but the majority of the time, the only thing you're going to be doing damage with your rapier is fletch, and you actually don't want to have the dot get the kill when you fletch somebody because you won't get the reset. So you actually want to get the kill with fletch. So I personally would just put an emerald in here, but it's up to you. 1 moonstone, 1 onyx, 1 emerald. Your resistances should look like this. Alright, so for the IG version, you just put the IG on. You don't change anything else. No stats need to change. No other gear needs to change. I put Unending Thaw on the IG just to have the storm last a little bit longer, the slow. And as far as gem goes, Onyx, but it's not super relevant. You don't do a lot of damage with your IG on this build anyways. Alright, so I'll just show the gear on my other character. This gear is probably a lot easier to acquire for the most part. Just pretend that these Frigid Dawn gloves aren't here. They're a heavy pair of gloves with Fortifying Perforating and Elemental Aversion. But yeah, we've got a Light Helmet, Refreshing Elemental Aversion, Skewer. Same pants as the other builds. Cyclone on this one. This is the crafted spear. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to get frontline point, or Life Ring Spear won't drop for you, so this is kind of the other option. Put Plague Crits on this finisher, which I find works a lot better. Moral Empowerment Ring, which I do think is best in slot for this build. And then no refreshing on Earring, you can just pick up a Life Loop. But this would be a lot easier to acquire overall. Alright, so there's 3 ways that I generally set up my attribute points. This is the one that I use most often. The 15% crit chance, although you're well into diminishing returns on crit chance, still seems to feel like it makes your crits more consistent, which to me is the most important thing when you're playing Spear. The other options would be to drop 100 points off Dex and put it into Strength to pick this up, or drop 50 points off Dex and put it into Int to pick these 2 up. The Strength version is probably your highest potential damage, and the Int version is probably the most consistent damage, and then this one is the most consistent crits. So those are the 3 different setups. Alright, so weapon builds real quick. We'll go over the Spear. We take this because we have to, and this is dog shit. This is insanely OP, one of the best passives in the game probably. You get 40 stamina dodges if you hit somebody, and it doesn't have a cooldown. It's very, very OP. One of the other most OP things in the game, restores 20 stamina on crits. You're definitely taking this. This is one of the best passives. Actually, probably is the best passive on the entire Spear. Cyclone and 25 stamina. We do not want to take the last point. This is knockback. This bricks the whole thing. It's worthless. Over here, we're taking as many things as we need to get the Exploited Weakness passive. All the upgrades to both of our abilities. The only points on this entire thing that we might want that we haven't taken are going to be Strong Conditioning, potentially, and Unnerving Precision. This isn't as good as all the other stuff we've taken, and as much as we want this, we can't get it, as well as having all the other stuff, so we're not going to be able to get this. This is pretty much the only thing that we'd want that we can't have. You could move something around to get it or do something, but you'd be losing way more than this is worth, so that's the Spear. Alright, Rapier, super simple, full defensive Rapier. We don't take this because it's 3% haste, which does nothing, and we swap off of our Rapier too often, so it's just not going to do anything. The only thing we ever hit with as well is Fletch, and so we just take this for extra damage on Fletch. Very, very simple. This is the IG build. Super simple as well. I wouldn't suggest moving any points on this. You have to take all the passives and all the storm to get Ultimate Chill, which you want because it procs Chill, which is the thing that procs the 15% damage from the new artifact Ice Gauntlet. So we're definitely taking this. We're definitely taking both of these abilities. The only thing you might think about would be these 2, but you'd have to drop Rend, and we're not going to drop Rend because, well, we're just not going to drop Rend. I'm not going to sit here and blab on for 20 minutes about how to be good with Spear. I think the 2 best pieces of advice that I can give to everybody are, 1, get good at using the light attack. The light attack on the Spear is probably one of the best light attacks in the game. The second one applies as slow. It's insane. If the person's running from you, it's giving you permanent stamina. You can put the person at such a stamina deficit and just run them down in a lot of scenarios. And that goes into the second thing, which is stop looking at the game in terms of health bars. Health bars don't matter. A stammed out target should look juicier to you than a 50% health target when you're playing this build. That's just a fact. You should not be looking at at people in terms of just health bars, you should be thinking about stamina more than anything else. You should be looking for stammed out targets, targets that have already expended cooldowns, and targets that are in positions where you can take advantage of them. Your 3 abilities allow you to delete pretty much any light target instantly, and the combination of Perforate, putting a 30% rend, and you having a 27% armor negation on your weapon allows you to do damage to basically anyone in the game. Even these heavy people, you know, you can't insta-kill them, but you can do damage to them. So during clump fights, you know, fort fights, whatever, you can actually whittle these people down quite quickly, more quickly than a lot of builds in the game. So just remember those things, and good luck.